Gun giveaway. Well, now that I have your attention, the Your Mountain podcast is working with Gunworks, Vortex Optics, Federal Premium Ammunition, Viking Tactics, Proof Research, Timely Triggers, and Magpul to put together a package of the components necessary for you to build a better gun. Go to www.itsyourmountain.com and look for the gun giveaway on our website. There you can find out how to enter in addition to review the rules and restrictions to this gun giveaway. Make sure you get your entry in by May 1st, 2019. So head it over to www.itsyourmountain.com. Now on to the show.
There are millions of acres of opportunity out there. They belong to you. Every day, decisions are being made that affect your land, your water, your wildlife. You should know about them. This is Your Mountain.
Hey everybody, welcome one more time to the Your Mountain podcast. This time we are coming to you from
an undisclosed location.
We won't tell you the location, but we'll tell you what where we are. We're at the it's an annual event, right? The annual Bow Hunters of Wyoming convention. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here. Nephi's here.
Yep.
Hey. That's all you
got.
Want
me to say still here, Dave?
No, I really don't.
Right. First he picks on me for it. Now he can't. I
still kind of want you to come up with a different tagline.
Well, Dad of the Year. I'm happy to be here.
See, that's the kind of tagline you need. I've got Dad of the Year. What do you have? Mike McGrady.
What's up?
Hey, you're here.
Yes.
You're the one that should be saying, I'm here. You've been missing far too often.
That's true. That is true. I have been missing too often because you guys always get the good opportunities to go, but that's okay.
Okay. We chose one career path. You chose another.
That's right.
Two roads diverged.
Yeah.
In the yellow wood.
Yeah. Somebody's got to work.
Well, I wouldn't call what you do. Yeah. Do we call what you do work?
More than you.
Fair enough. But I disagree.
A bastion of the legal system. Michael McGrady.
So like I said, we're here at the Bow Hunters Wyoming annual convention, and we thought it would be great to do a podcast where we talk with a number of women in bow hunting, right, that have gotten into not just hunting, but bow hunting specifically. So who wants to start? I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves. Who wants to start?
I guess I will.
Jess, you start.
I'm Jess Johnson, and I've been hunting about 10 years now, and I kind of went backwards. I picked up a bow first, and it's just what stuck. And actually, this last season is the first season I've ever shot anything with a rifle.
That's actually, interestingly, a lot like natural history, see? Because we started out bows first.
And
I have to tell you, I'm going to put the gun back down and go. I'm going to go backwards again. So it's
okay once you find
when you find your niche, and it was my niche, and I've done a lot of taking the rifle out and just shot and really enjoy that. But as far as hunting wise, I think I prefer the style of bow hunting. So that's really what stuck, and it was getting in close. And
you can get
also
in close with a rifle, by the way.
Yeah, but it's the season too. It's September. It's the whole month of September, and I don't know. I think it's just it's what works for me. And I've taken a lot of friends out. Actually, when I don't fill a tag in bow season, which happens a lot, I take a lot of friends out that are rifle hunters and just guide them where I've been watching animals for the last month, and then I watch them shoot an animal and I help them pack it out and take a leg.
Cool.
So, I'm a bow hunter and I love it, and it's sort of took me into the career that I have. And
are you allowed to say what that is?
Yeah. I work for the Wyoming Wildlife Federation, and I am their legislative liaison and advocacy coordinator. So I spend time down at the Wyoming State Legislature lobbying on bills that affect wildlife and hunting. And then when it's not legislative session, I'm doing sort of advocacy work around the state, whether it's running our conservation ambassador program or attending Game and Fish Commission meetings and things like that.
All right, I'll go.
Yeah.
I'm Hanna Herold, and I kind of went the opposite direction. I got into hunting first probably about 7 or so years ago with a rifle. And when I moved to San Diego for grad school, I hated it there. Hated living in a big city. Had always lived in the outdoors, Alaska, Montana. So in San Diego, I was going stir crazy. I can't just target practice in the middle of the city.
Surf every day.
I know. And I'm not the best surfer. So I picked up a bow, and because you can shoot a bow in the middle of the city. So I started shooting archery, started out with tournaments and started small with local tournaments, started moving to tournaments a little further distance away, and eventually got into national tournaments. And that was about 5 years ago. And then started shooting for Bowtech. I've been shooting for Bowtech for a few years now. And about 3 years ago, I did my first bow hunt. And started with antelope and absolutely loved it. It was a whole different thing from tournament archery. Lots of challenges that I'm still overcoming because I'm a tournament archer. I like to take my time. I set up for my shot. I relax. I breathe. I check my footing. And by the time that I finish all that, the animal's gone. So it's total different experience from tournament archery, but I absolutely love it.
So I heard that it's legal to you said it's legal to shoot a bow in San Diego.
Oh yeah, yep.
I heard it is not legal in Lander, Wyoming. Is that true?
It's not legal if there's a broadhead or any kind of like sharpened tip on it, which is like I think also a field tip. So it kind of just and the discussion that happened around it was that somebody came to. I was not there for this. This is maybe hearsay, but the rumor is that somebody came to the city council meeting when they were deciding this and talked about arrows going through like cinder blocks and
What kind of arrows are people?
I was like, everybody was like elephant arrows. Like,
holy smokes!
Yeah. I watch a lot of Rambo movies,
and even in Rambo, arrows don't go through cinder blocks.
It's true. I kind of want to try it now, though.
I know, right? I think the exploding tips are the only ones that I can imagine would like actually do any damage to a cinder block.
Because I could use some.
Yeah, I want to try that too.
No, never. I want to try that. Never. Don't have them though.
But
yeah.
Cheyenne has the same rule, by the way, the same law. You cannot shoot a bow in the city limits in Cheyenne either.
I think they were worried about people hunting in city limits, and that was like a big portion of it.
I didn't even think it was
rabbits.
Actually, something you have to worry about in Wyoming, where you're like, oh, somebody might.
What kind of a redneck would go out in his backyard with a bow and just like shoot collared doves?
Or
since there's
prairie
no bag
dogs.
limit and
no season, no limit, right? But no, I think it was actually
practice.
It was a public safety thing. Is why they why the laws at least in Cheyenne, probably Lander, they don't allow you to.
It makes sense.
I don't think they're worried about hunting so much as they were worried about a ricochet or something going through a neighbor's window. Because with the technology, the bows you have today,
if I can't shoot my suppressed 22, it doesn't seem right.
Right.
With a bow.
But I can tell you that law is loosely enforced.
Are you sure, Dave?
Maybe less than
Might
loosely
be more
enforced
after this podcast.
But this is our plug for Cheyenne Field Archers, right? We have archery ranges you can go to.
That is
Cheyenne Field Archers is very affordable,
you bet.
Annual, and it's like 24/7 access.
That's true. That's a pretty amazing place.
So,
it's out by
indoor.
Nephi's house. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a cool place.
Well, I mean, I don't want to steal Cody's thunder.
Yeah, because Cody, you need to introduce yourself.
Then I'll talk about the find of the century, which is my archery, my home archery range. Like, it's mine.
It
so
is Nephi's.
Cody or Coco or whatever you want to call yourself. Introduce yourself.
Formerly known, I'm just joking. Codee Augustin. So just hunting background and everything. My dad is Harvey Dalton. He actually just got voted in as president of Bowhunters Wyoming this morning. We do our re-elections during the convention. So he's my hero. He has introduced me to everything outdoors and hunting, ethical, just man and good man in general. Love him to death. So I grew up like just following this guy around and shooting rabbits and going in blinds, and he would dig these holes and we would just hang out, So shot my first elk when I was 14, and just along this whole road, I picked up a bow. He actually the reason I shot a bow when I was younger, but I didn't actually think about bow hunting. My dad is very accomplished, but I think because of things I've done in my life that are so busy, I didn't think about it until he got me one from an auction at Bowhunters Wyoming 5 years ago. And I was like, oh man, I need to do this. So pick that thing up, and I'm totally addicted. I'm addicted to just being out there, being close to things, just working hard and getting out there. I love all of it. I love everything it encompasses. And like I said, I haven't harvested anything, but that's the last box to check there.
So I stumbled on bow hunting. So I'll tell you this because you were talking about the Cheyenne Field Archers, because I love to shoot, but the neighborhood that I live in, there's this building that's roughly a block away from my house on the other side of this street. All these people come and go, and turns out it's an archery range. And so I got a bow, and so now it's open 24/7 with a key card. You just go in there. It's like heated, 50-yard range. It's sweet. And the thing is, you can't take your 300 Win Mag out to the range at 10 o'clock at night while one of your while you just put the kids down to go sleep. You can't do that. But if you live right next door to the Codee Field Archers, you can take your key card, grab your compound bow every night if you wanted to, and just walk a block, go shoot.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
It's probably caused some divorces out there, because I know I'm...
Well, so far we're okay, but...
like, where is he at?
As far as I know, it could... I haven't asked.
There's worse places to be.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, so let's kick this thing off. Everybody gets into something like this in a different way. Right? Everybody gets into hunting in a different way, and you've all kind of talked about when you first started. But as so we're seeing today, women are the fastest growing demographic of hunters, and we hear it in the term of hunters, but we haven't really focused in and talked about bow hunters, archery hunters, and women getting into archery hunting. And I'm kind of curious, is when you started getting into it, did you notice were there any challenges or barriers that you encountered that maybe men wouldn't encounter, to get into archery? And I'm just curious, what the barriers to entry were.
When I first expressed the interest, and you have to go buy a bow was the first step, and I walked into the first bow store, of which I did not purchase the bow from, and the first thing out of the guy's mouth was, "Oh, here's our selection of pink bows." And right out of the gate, I was like, "What? Do I look like this? Kind of like, is this what I look like when I walk in? Like, I want a hot pink raspberry bow." And it was, they wouldn't let me even shoot the man's bow, because they kept telling me that it was going to be too much draw. There's no way you'll be able to pull it back. They kept putting the kids' bows and the pink bows in my hands, and then were trying to sell me arrows that I had done enough research at that point that I knew did not fit that bow. And it was like the car mechanic, kind of, when you go and you feel like the wool's being pulled over your eyes just because you look like you don't know.
Because you wouldn't buy the
one that they handed you.
And so I left, and I ended up actually going down to a really great bow shop just in Fort Collins, and got set up with a bow that was right for me. They, it's a completely different experience. It was a great experience down there, and it was an unfortunate sort of, I think they would look at me and like, "Oh, here's these bows that we've been trying to get rid of for a while. I bet she'll buy one." And I knew what I was looking for. I'd done my research. I went in and I wanted a nice bow. I was ready to spend the money. I knew what my draw length was. I knew, about fitting my arrows. And, the first time I got arrows, I was taught how to fletch them and that kind of thing. So it wasn't just this go buy stock arrows and a bow and not listen to
So you geek out on stuff before you buy.
Major geek out.
You're a long range shooter. You don't know what that is.
I'm a researcher too. Research everything.
And it's even now, building my own, I tweak my arrows and still learning 10 years in, but that was very disheartening, and I felt like I wasn't taken seriously, and it really pissed me off. I was really angry about it, and felt really sort of embarrassed to have been treated that way, but it is sort of what launched me into being a much louder voice about women in hunting.
So, was it a generational thing? I'm the person that tried to push bows that just weren't right.
Mm-hmm.
in my head, I have a picture of what this person probably looks like, and I probably shouldn't be painting.
He has a T-shirt that says "Dad of the Year."
No. But I'm thinking. What I was wondering is it because in my mind, what I'm thinking is, okay, this is some guy that could be our parents' or grandparents' age, right? And has never been around women hunters, frankly, because they grew up in an era where that just didn't happen that much. And so in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. But is that am I wrong? Is that the?
It was two. It was a duo behind the counter, and it was an older gentleman and a younger gentleman.
It just proves that what's the right word? Idiots don't necessarily have an age range.
Yeah, right.
You can be dumb no matter how old you are.
And that's kind of the point.
So the one down in Fort Collins that you went to.
Gannett Ridge?
Yeah, I've been in there.
They were great. Those two guys were amazing.
2 guys about our age.
Yeah.
And they really care.
I'd done enough research where I knew I wanted a Bowtech. I knew and I'd done that because I wanted it for.
Shameless plug. Even
I know. Well, and it was
should we
worked
take a
for
poll?
me.
How many people here shoot Bowtechs?
I shoot Bowtech.
No,
I have a bear, so.
You couldn't
Bowtech
guess.
shirt
But
on.
Yeah, right.
Last choice. I would never have thought.
Yeah.
No, I'd known what it was, and so I knew what I wanted. But when I walked into the first place, they just didn't even ask what are you looking for? It was here's the pink little kid's bow, which is there's a place for that, and there's a person that wants that, and that's great. But I think just to be assumed that was what it was pretty.
Yeah, they don't even sell that stuff at the place you ended up buying one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, they have a great store
Same place
down
I
there.
got mine. Yeah.
So I'm curious, Hannah, you started bow hunting in an entirely different place, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I say bow hunting, I mean archery. So it must have been, I'll bet it was a significantly different experience because you were in an area where probably wasn't hunting centered, it was sports centered.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, so San Diego, first of all, you would be surprised how many hardcore hunters there are in San Diego. You don't think that in the middle of a 1 million+ person city that there's going to be bow hunters, but there are. They love it enough to travel. I think San Diego, of course, it's a West Coast city. It's a little bit more of a progressive city than some of the other areas you might find. So you do still find the people like that, like you're describing, where it's a man who immediately pushes you towards the pink bows or something. But I think for me, it wasn't necessarily an experience like that where I have run into that before, but also just for a woman going into a sport that is publicized and kind of known to be like a male-dominated sport, it can be intimidating. So there's a lot of women who I think are interested in it, but without having female role models that are widely publicized and that they're hearing about them and seeing pictures and on hunting shows and things like that, it's oh man, that's a very male-dominated sport. It can be a little intimidating for a woman going into that.
Well, we call it sportsmen.
Yeah, right.
Sportswomen sometimes, but that's a mouthful.
Yeah.
Sports
so
person.
what steps did you
Person is
take?
weird too.
Yeah, it does sound weird. It doesn't just roll off the tongue.
Well, so for me, I got into it. I literally just took the initiative and went to the range on my own. I had a bow that a friend had given me, a female friend, so I didn't run into any issues there. And I went to the range and I just started shooting. And I think if you're able to get into it that way, where you're at a range with like-minded people who love the sport like you do, everyone was very friendly. I mean, I started out there and someone would come up to me and be like, hey, do you mind if I show you this thing? And just being open to that constructive criticism or that help, and they'd show me something different. And then another person, another weekend, hey, have you ever thought about coming to one of our tournaments? It's next Saturday. If you want, you can shoot with our group. We'll walk you through how to do it. So getting into it in an environment like that where everyone is friendly, because that's what bow hunters are. They're friendly. They want to help and teach and bring new people into the sport. That definitely was a much more kind of open arm gesture into the sport for me.
Yeah.
I was lucky. The man who taught me how to shoot and everything, and I say this now, but it was very frustrating to start with. Actually had me blindfolded and working on form, and we were dating at the time, and there was lots of. I was very angry at him for times for not letting me actually aim, and he wanted me to work on form and all of that. But looking back, I had a very wonderful introduction and experience through learning, having him teach that. And as ugly as my initial experience was, who taught me and who took me into the sport of hunting was a very wonderful man.
I can't believe you even let him try. My wife and I, we can't teach each other anything. We have to go get lessons from somewhere else.
Yeah,
this is true.
Let's go learn to do this together separately.
Yeah, we almost didn't get married because we played tennis one time, and I just said, hey, if you know, that was it.
I got to do what Codee had suggested, which I actually got to go on a hunt with him prior to having a bow or anything, and I just was interested. So I went hunting with him one year without, I didn't have a weapon. I just went with him and experienced it, and so I got like a really great insight into it. And then he's a very meticulous. I jokingly call him like the Mr. Miyagi of archery, because he did have me like blindfolded, and it was like the wax on, wax off. And I was like, what does this have to do with archery?
Did you like a helmet and you put the blast shield down, right?
There were definitely arguments, and I very, very remember like the biggest one was because he wouldn't let me aim, and I was like, I think I'm ready.
So
hang on, Codee, yeah.
Well, I was just going to speak to Hannah's. I think how Hanna is saying, like, she kind of started off in a, bow hunting environment. And I think that's true. The mindset of bow hunters is different than other hunters. I don't know how to describe that. It's just they're different people. They look at hunting differently. And so when you walk into Shinefield Archers or something like that, they're like, oh, hey, do you need a bow? Can I help you? Like, my whole experience with bow hunting is super positive, because I come from a family where women hunt, or they have the choice. And so my dad didn't raise us. I have a twin sister. So this is an interesting story, actually. I don't want to get too long on this, but he took us both out. We both had the opportunity to shoot things. We went hunting the first time together, and we fought so much and made so much noise that he goes, not taking you two together again. So we brought my sister Courtney out, and she actually had a shot and she couldn't do it. Her heart told her not to shoot this elk, and she actually is not a hunter. She can't bring herself to take the life of an animal, which we totally respect. She's probably the only one in our family. So, and she lives in Wisconsin now, and I send her meat, organic meat, so she doesn't have to pay $10 a pound.
Does she send you cheese or?
Yeah.
And a little spotted cow.
Spotted cow,
I think it's great. Like, I love mentoring women and doing all that stuff, but I think we can't forget about our men, because they are my heroes in my life. And my husband actually mentored me a lot into it. And I'm like, I think it's great for if your husband and wife to maybe get instructed by someone else. It is nerve-wracking and a little harder, but my husband has been a huge mentor to me.
Yeah, I honestly, I hope we're in a place now, like, as a community, where it can matter less, and we can start to not care about it. Because frankly, I don't think, I think it's unfair to paint people in a corner, pretending like hunting is some kind of a gender contest, where it's
right.
No, men are going to be better at this because they're stronger, and so they're going to like this kind of hunting. Women are going to be better at this because they're pretty. Like, no, I think that reality. There's people have different personalities, they have different aptitudes, and that's a people thing. Mm-hmm. And I can't go hunt with Dave. We're not married. And but at the same time, we could
even if we were, we wouldn't be hunting together.
No, so I mean, it's just but it does, like, whoever your mentor is, don't get preconceived notions about who you can mentor, who you should mentor.
Right.
Don't say, hey, who I need to mentor. It's got to be like that guy, or a girl, or I have to be mentored by one or the other.
Yeah.
Just get together with somebody and go, because the opportunities are there. The growth is there, and interestingly enough, Dave, you talked about growth, and that women are the fastest growing segment within the sportsman's community. But one of the things that we haven't really talked about is, even though that's the case, they're still not. It's not like we're 50-50. It's not like, there are percentage that's growing faster than all the other percentages, but it's not like we've reached a level of equilibrium, or even like this exponential curve is even starting to flatten out.
I'll say this. It's still, as a man who's been hunting my whole life, it's still unusual for me to encounter a woman in the woods. And so when we talk about, how women are growing in getting more involved in hunting, it's still an anomaly in some ways to run across a woman out in the field, unless, like, my daughter's sitting here listening in on this, which I think is awesome. she comes with me all the time. She's the only
She's the only person who'll hunt with Dave on a regular basis.
It might be
and
true
it's because she doesn't have a set of car keys yet.
That's right. Choice.
But I'd say, we don't see a lot of women hunters. So even when we hear this, so what's your experience out there? Are you running into other women hunters out, when you're out in the backcountry?
No,
I've never run into another woman that I wasn't out there already with. And I think, thinking about like, we're still, we're not half the hunting community. We are the fastest growing segment of new hunters, I think is even what it is. But the messaging and the voice that hunting has right now, when you just sort of pull back and you look at what the average, we'll just say non-hunter, or person that doesn't like know much in hunting, what they see, what our media puts out, what's the face value image when you start Googling stuff is not really something I'd ever want to be associated with. And I think it drives a lot of women away.
Why is that?
I think it's a, and like to narrow it down, like talk about what you see on television, and it is changing in little increments. It is changing. But when you go on and you watch a hunting show that is kill shot after kill shot after kill shot after kill shot, and it's the same kill shot and there's 14 shots of the same kill shot, I never look at that and go, oh, I want to go do that. That was never this. There was no story behind it. I had like no idea why this person was out there doing it. There was no reason for me to be connected to why I wanted to go do that. And
so the Grip and Grin show wasn't your cup of tea.
No, and I think that speaks. I think a lot of women look at that and kind of like inwardly eye roll a little bit and go like, what are they trying to like prove here? But I, that being said, is that having been hunting and being a hunter now, knowing how minuscule of like the actual process and the story that like 30-second clip is, and how much that's the tip of the iceberg, and we chose to tell that part of the story, not like the rest of it that talks about the reality of hunting, and whether it's the love of being outdoors or the hardships or the marital fights that might happen, like to make it real. I think and I don't think it's just women. I think it's really hard for people who are outside of this already very closed community to look from the outside in and have any kind of concept of what hunting actually is, and have any like desire to want to be associated with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you mentioned like the, just take a, show A from whatever channel. I mean, I don't think it's just you, it's just women. I think that the reality is I don't think that most people who aren't hunters already, like when they see that, they probably aren't getting a really good feel for it. And
because if you're a hunter, you fill in the story. You're like, oh, I know what they've done. Well, like we know what it's like. But if you're not and you haven't done that, it's like.
What draws you to the woods to bow hunt versus? I mean, Jess, you said you rifle hunted for the first time this past year, right? You just don't do it. You bow hunt, right? So I'm. What is it? What is it about it? What's the thing about it? What's your favorite part about it?
I think it was exactly what Nephi was alluding to, is that it made me a hunter. It made me pay attention to things like temperature and shade and food and forage. And I started learning more of the biology of the animals that I was hunting. And it put me more in that ecosystem, I think, than I like not been doing it that way. And I don't know, I can't make a great comparison to rifle hunting because I haven't done it that much.
Yeah, you're not going to bow hunt from a 4-wheeler.
I've seen it done. I've seen it done.
And it is that, I'm the sort of, I guess, like self-punishing bow hunter where I like being 6, 9, 12 miles from the nearest road and car and that kind of thing. And that is what I go for. And that doesn't mean that's the only way. It's just, I like that. And it's the style that I gravitate to. And I think it's also the quiet. It's the issue I had with a rifle is, I think starting bow hunting, I felt like I entered into this like very natural setting. And having this, for lack of sounding a little woo-woo, but this contract between me and this animal that I'm hunting that was one of sort of very natural sounds and landscapes and just me and this animal. And I have no issue with guns. I love going out with them, but they're so loud that this first time when I harvested an animal, it was actually kind of...
Your long-range shooter.
Me off. Yep. It put me off.
Suppressed.
So he's going to try.
So what about Hannah, what about you?
I like a challenge or a puzzle, and so for me, it feels like rifle hunting. There's challenges with rifle hunting. I'm not saying it's easy, but rifle hunting, you can see an animal and still be completely undetected, not have to worry about wind because you're so far away, not have to worry about sound because you're so far away, versus with bow hunting, it's that puzzle you have to put together where, okay, I can't just be on this hillside 400 yards away and be able to take a shot at it. I do have to get closer, and then you have to consider all the pieces of that puzzle.
And how you're going to get closer.
How
from
am I
that
going to get
400
there?
yards is the longest
Where's my
way
cover?
to go.
Where am I going to hide?
It's not the 400 yards, it's the last 10 yards.
Exactly. And then also, okay, that's the animal I want, but there's 5 more over here. I have to not only avoid being detected by that animal, but those 5 as well, because they'll give me away. And just putting all those puzzle pieces together to actually get in range with a bow and make that shot.
Mm-hmm. So everything that these women have said is, how I feel, but also I just love going out. It's a challenge, of course, but I love going out. And like this last time I went with my dad, and it was when that fire was happening close to encampment, and that's where we were archery hunting. And so where, the elk may have been rich the year before, they completely were not that time. And so we didn't see anything. The elk were so off, bugling at 2 p.m. and we usually don't even stay out that long. So just like learning your environments. And then, I knew it was going to rain that night. So I told my dad had to go, and I'm like, I'm going to sleep in my Jeep and I'm going to get up first thing, and this is going to be great. And you just never know what is going to happen. And I love that. And then I also I'm a nerd, and I love to pick up bones and rocks and just like study them and be like, how did this animal die? Like you just become this biologist and you're like, oh, I'm hunting. And then all of a sudden I'm a total nerd. I come back with like a collection of rocks and bones for me, but for my kids.
I come back.
I have a windowsill of rocks that have come from
and I'm like, oh, I live in the Point in Cheyenne, and if you know what the Point is, it's kind of like a HOA,
it's a point with an
with an
E.
Yes,
so that tells you all you need to know.
Fancy.
So I don't fit in well at the Point. You can't shoot you can't shoot it anyway. But I have at our entryway, I have a collection of bones and rocks sitting right in front there, and I'm like, welcome to my home.
The only rocks I have from the hunt, like somebody stuck them in my backpack.
Yeah. Walking behind my husband, just drop them. That'll be fun.
I always pack, sheds, bones, whatever. Always find myself
I
packing
found
something out.
points too. I think that was one of my first experiences archery hunting. I was waiting for a deer to stand up, and I sat down in an abandoned deer bed and stuck my hand down and pulled up a stone point and was like, ooh, I'm not the first hunter to have had this been here and thought about that. And it was really connecting, I think.
Yeah. So it sounds like the three of you are really interested in the chase part.
Mm-hmm.
That aspect of it and what that really teaches you. Because with archery, you're learning a lot more about the chase than necessarily you are with the rifle. And if you really like that chase aspect of it, the opportunities to learn more and digest and figure out and put this puzzle together, bow hunting's your best opportunity.
Well, what's interesting is I think I love that. But at the same time, so here's the weird dichotomy with me, is I love bow hunting for that, for learning that piece of it. And I almost, and you'll get sick of me for this, I almost don't really care if I draw back during bow season. I'm kind of out there to kind of get the feel of it, and go with buddies and everything like that. I spend an inordinate amount of time out of range and tailoring loads and shooting to ridiculous distances. And I don't advocate that somebody go try and take a shot at game at ridiculous distances, but I love perfecting that part of my craft, so that I like having that whole game. I want my whole game to be absolutely as good as it possibly can be when I go out into the field, which brings me to my question for you guys.
Are you going to ask the question you wanted to ask before? Yeah, I'm going to stand up and move out of reach.
I know.
I'm throwing this out of question because I think this will be entertaining. Bow hunting's unethical. Change my mind.
Dave's elk had 2 bullets in it. It wasn't a broadhead.
Touche.
Go ahead.
I've dug broadheads out of animals before too.
I don't think bow hunting's unethical, and I don't think rifle hunting's unethical. I think the hunters are unethical.
Yep.
You can be terrible, whatever weapon you're carrying. And I think it's a mistake. I've seen plenty of bow hunters that don't know their equipment, that have not taken the time to tune it, that haven't spent. And a compound bow it's a piece of technical equipment. Yes. I don't. I'm probably going to get skinned for saying this, but
as much as the bow companies say, it's not tuned out of the box.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not tuned out of the box. No matter what bow you shoot, you need to put your work into it.
And it is. You hunt with a stick and string. That's a very different weapon than what a compound is. And a compound bow is a technical piece of equipment that I hesitate to even call it. Oh my God, what is the word they use for that? The traditional hunting, we have the special archery season and it's all these arguments around all these different kinds of things. But this, it is a piece of technical equipment, and you can misuse it as easily as you can misuse a gun and not practice with a gun, because I can tell you, I didn't feel like I'd practiced enough when I went and shot my first animal with a gun, and it sat in my stomach not great. And so it's the person behind it, not the piece of equipment.
I love that answer.
Yeah, that's exactly what came to my mind too. I mean, a person can be unethical no matter what weapon they hold. It's a matter of that person and the practice they put into it, the tuning they put into that weapon, the choices that they make while they're out in the field. An arrow can be just as deadly as a bullet, equally as deadly. You can get a quicker kill with an arrow than you might be able to with a bullet in some situations. It's all about,
and vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa. There's situations where one might be more quicker than the other, but it's about analyzing that situation when you're in it, making the decision, okay, is this, if I have an elk quartering to me and I have a bow, do I feel confident in that shot? No. Can that arrow with that broadhead make it through an elk's shoulder bone? No. It's all about the choices you make.
I heard it goes through cinder blocks. So,
Sorry, I don't shoot the exploding arrows. So
I know. I really want to now, though.
Yeah.
Pre-tenderized dinner.
I think also there's that, everybody's ethics are going to be a little different because everybody's going to have a different comfort level. When I started shooting a bow, and I wouldn't take a shot past 20 yards when I started with a bow, and I'm comfortable at 35 now, but I practice to 65, 80, because I feel like if you double it and you're practicing at that, then when you're, it's a live animal is so different. And that was a mistake. That was the mistake that I made, is I wasn't shooting longer. And that's what made me feel weird with the rifle when I took a shot this last fall. But yeah.
So I mean,
I have another one when you're done.
Yeah, well, I love both those answers, and I think they're perfect. I think that's the answer, and I threw it out there as kind of like a confrontational question, because you see people do that with, if rifle hunters do that to archery hunters do that to long range. People who shoot long range.
Archery hunters do it to each other.
That was going to be my next. That was actually going to be my next question.
And the thing I was going to say, you mentioned quartering towards you away. Even within the hunting community, I'll tell you, as a guy who spends way too much time studying external ballistics, that in terminal performance, that different bullet. Give me a 180 grain bullet in the same rifle. Bullet construction, I can tell you what shot I should take with which bullet and what shot I should not, based on the bullet. And I think the interesting thing about archery is it forces you a little bit. I mean, you have to take stock of that right now with archery, right? When you're screwing that broadhead on there, depending on the type of broadhead that it is, you're going, okay, why is this broadhead constructed this way, and what's it supposed to do? And with rifle hunting, it's a little bit easier for people just to buy a box of shells and just to be just assume that box of shells, point, crosshairs go right here, pull the trigger, bang, without understanding that, okay, this bullet is designed to work in a certain way, and it's going to work best at this velocity. It's going to work best put into this spot on the animal. So,
all right, I've got one.
There's nerds on both sides of these tables.
I know, right?
I've got one.
Okay.
And this is talking archery versus archery in a way. All right, so I'm going to do the same format Nephi did.
Oh, you're going to go crossbows, aren't you?
Crossbows shouldn't be allowed during archery season. Yeah. Convince me I'm wrong.
Ooh, and I don't even know that I have my head wrapped around this argument yet, because I've never shot a crossbow, and I hesitate to have opinions on things I haven't tried. But that being said, there is an element of, I guess, I can tell you what I hear. And I can tell you that because I don't have an opinion on this yet. And I'm going to hear a lot from that one. But I hear that, you know.
Email goes directly to Mike McGrady. Just so everybody knows. And McGrady at yourmountain.com.
It's yourmountain.com.
But you know, that there's the argument that it's a longer range and you're in seasons, especially like September with an elk season where an elk is coming in really close. And it's a longer range shot. People don't have to practice as much because you can just pull it back, point it, and shoot it. There's a whole sort of range of that kind of thing that I've heard. There's also the fact, and the thing that makes me hate this argument the most is actually the people that have like been arguing for crossbows when they tell them, they're like, we need to have them, otherwise women won't hunt. And that's when I'm like,
well, this
now
is
I
what
hate
I was
crossbows.
going to talk about.
So I got two guys that I work with and I've talked to about hunting and various things. And for archery, at their age, they want to start off with a crossbow. Because they know that they don't have the ability to invest the appropriate time, and they also worry about they have shoulder injuries from certain points of time, and both of these gentlemen are stronger than me by far, but they don't have necessarily the right flexibility, or
it's hard on shoulders
they had some injury,
joints,
and so they're kind of, in order for them to get into archery at this stage, it's going to have to probably be a crossbow.
Yeah. And I think the crossbow gives people who might not be able to shoot a bow an opportunity, whether it's someone who has gone through shoulder injuries or shoulder surgeries and can't, effectively pull back a bow, or even like kids. My 6-year-old stepson, we shoot a crossbow with him. He has a bow himself too, but when we go down to Georgia to hunt, where he's old enough to hunt there, we bring a crossbow, and my husband helps him with it because he's old enough to hunt. He can't draw back. He pulls 10 pounds. He can't hunt ethically. So a crossbow gives him the opportunity to do what he enjoys. He loves archery and archery hunt, but actually do it in a safe way where he could effectively, kill a deer. And so it brings more people into the sport who might not be in the sport without the opportunity to shoot a crossbow.
But the worry that it creates for me, and this is where I have this like, I guess I see both sides of the argument, and I'm sort of on this fence right now, because the worry that I have with that is that it is so easy that people that, are like, I want to, go hunting, and they just pick up a crossbow and go out in a season when you can get very close to an animal, and just, they don't take the time. I don't think you have near the reflection to figure out like what you're actually doing out there. I don't think there's enough like being present in yourself when it's just this like pick it up and wing it kind of thing, which is not a knock at that, but it's also something that brings me back to the unethical shots that happen, that when you haven't practiced with something, when you are just pick it up and go, and you haven't spent the time getting to know your equipment, and I'm probably projecting some grand stereotypes on this that may not be correct, but I worry about what example that sets in that sense. And I'm on the fence because I see that side very much so, of like getting younger like kids into that, or if you have a shoulder injury, or if you are just at the age where you cannot pull a bow because of, whether it's joints or anything else. Like, I very much understand that, and I'm fine with that. It's just, it's the people that behave badly. But again, that's the problem.
Yeah. So here's how I respond to that. And you said it earlier.
Yeah. It's the,
you have people that behave badly.
It's the people.
It's the people
with whatever tool they use. Right. You have people that behave badly. I look at it like this. And so I asked the question, and maybe I said, prove me wrong. And I didn't ask the question because I believed it a certain, that I just kind of wanted to pose the question. But I'd look at it this way. So you have a spectrum on the rifle, hunting with rifles, you have a spectrum, right? What are you going to do with a 243 versus a 300 Win Mag, for example, out in the field? What's going to be an ethical shot? What are you going to take? They're both legal firearms to use for taking a big game animal. You just have to know, as Nephi talked about, you got to know the firearm, you got to know the ammunition, you got to know your craft. And some people are going to be able to take longer shots than other people are going to take. Conditions are going to be differently. Same applies on the archery side. You know, whether you're using a crossbow, a traditional bow, a compound bow, there's this range of distances that'll be, ethical. There's a range of opportunity there. But at the end of the day, if what we as a hunting community are espousing is we want more people in, we want to bring in more hunters. We want to bring them in as adults. We want to bring them in as kids. We want to recruit hunters. We want to retain hunters. Then the ease of entry, we should make it as easy as possible for folks to get in. And it's not about. I've kind of viewed it as we shouldn't judge other hunters by the method of take that they decide to use. We should judge hunters if they aren't acting ethically.
With that method
they choose. Yeah. But if it's a legal method, we should be supporting. We should be supporting each other rather than breaking each other down. It's a community that's so small to begin with that if we have infighting over methods of take, for example, we're just fracturing our ability to be effective advocates. We're fracturing our ability to maintain this heritage and tradition. Yeah. And so I've kind of fallen firmly in this camp of we need to educate people to hunt the right way, as in knowing their craft. And, Nephi and I have talked about this a lot over the years. But
so I have a question that kind of goes into that. Yeah. Because you have these different methods of take. And I know, Nephi, you and I had a long talk about this last legislative session. But you talk about how... and I don't know the numbers behind it, but how effective are these different technologies? And the word I was looking for when I was talking about it was hard for me to call a compound bow a primitive weapon.
Yeah. Sure.
And
I've got a great answer for this. You're going to love it.
So when we have the ease of take, like what are the ratio of if you're a crossbow, if everybody in archery season hunted with crossbows, would the hunter success rate go up? Would it stay the same? Would it be different?
And so here's what would happen.
Right. So I'm asking, it's like as this technology advances, at what point is our hunter opportunity not going to advance? That's not a
But does it matter if it goes up?
Because here's what happened. So here's what happened. Let's just say, what if we all went to the range? Everybody who is a bow hunter just started. Everybody just let's just in our Dr. Seuss book, we all just go to the range and just start hammering away at the range. Would our success go up? Yes, it would. Mm-hmm. Then what would happen? Game and Fish would look at our success rates. Our success rates would go up, and they would limit our season. And then part of the thing that you love bow hunting for, because you get better and better at bow hunting, you do it less. Everybody would do it less. Mm-hmm. The numbers of people might increase. So Game and Fish has to manage two things. They have to manage that hunter opportunity, and they have to manage that the herd numbers. And so I think if we plan everything based on, if we self-impose, let's make it harder for you to hunt with a bow, because I think it should be more sportsman, it should be more sporting or whatever.
I don't know what the right word is there, but
it's not the right reason to think about it that way. And all of us, I would say, over the season, and Dave's going to have, we change as hunters over the season too. Mm-hmm. The reason that we all live in Wyoming, we think bow hunting's awesome, is because guess what? We buy one tag and we start hunting in September, and we're hunting in December on the same tag. And we changed the entire time. In September, we're like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go find the biggest, baddest, and then I'm going to get him within 30 yards. Well, that doesn't happen. So then suddenly we shift, and we're like, okay, well, now I'm a rifle hunter and I'm going to spend a month doing, week
to try and get them within 30 yards.
Now I'm hunting bunnies because I've got to fill the freezer with something.
And so for us, in December, I'm out there with some buddies, and we're like, all right, let's go find some cows.
Yeah,
cow elk.
First cow you see.
Yeah, and it's like with a rifle and a suppressor. It's just it's a different hunt for a different reason, with a different set of people, with a different goal.
Mm-hmm. And so I always thought when with Dave's question on should crossbows be allowed during archery season, it always seemed to me that is it the right technology for the right season?
And that's the question that I keep having.
And in this state it is.
Yeah.
But I understand.
Should you only use it during the rifle season because it performs at a higher level?
Right.
Not should you not be allowed to use it at all.
Is it archery equipment or is it a rifle? Where does it fit better despite
as soon as each state, and every state's going to be different, within your state, as soon as there starts to be an impact enough where they feel like, what we have to do? We have to carve out something, because clearly this is
a little different.
Then they're going to make that. So, for example, in some states, muzzleloader hunting, right? We don't have a muzzleloader hunt here. Well, some states they have a separate muzzleloader hunt. Some states it's earlier. Some states it's later. Some states it's traditional only. Some states it's...
We don't have any dedicated muzzleloader hunt?
No, and it would be cool if we did, so I had extra time still. Yeah, so then we could hunt non-stop. It's like, when the regular hunt ends, we should have a 2-month...
you talk about
June and July are always the lonely months where you're like, what do I do?
That's when June and July. That's when you go out and shoot collared doves.
Yeah, there it is.
Can I say something about the crossbows?
Please do.
I think my experience with them is negative because of the people, right? So I think that our society is a society that grabs ibuprofen when we have a headache. We don't think like, why do I have a headache? Is it because I'm dehydrated? Maybe I need water. Like, or am I hungry? They just think ibuprofen or like,
Fix the symptom, not the problem.
Right. So the people that I've seen with these crossbows have been like people who don't practice that much. They take it out of the case and they haven't touched it. Like, I feel like when you have this compound bow, you're constantly touching things. You're constantly moving. But
we are. There's a lot of people that don't.
There are some, but I think what I have done with people with crossbows is like, why do you shoot a crossbow? And they are like, well, I don't know. I just guess it's easier. And so I've got them into, my husband and I have got them into like shooting compounds because there was just like, it was just so easy, right? It was just the easy thing. And now that they're doing it, they're like, this is so much different and so much more fun. The experience is different. But I just think it's like our society sometimes, like I'm with Hunting with Heroes, right? If there's a disabled veteran, of course, I'm like, oh yeah, if this guy is the only way that he can do it, like, let's get him out there and get him a crossbow. But me, Codee Augustin, I think that
what makes you take the time to learn something?
Well, and a guy came up to me and he's like, I can't shoot a bow because my shoulder. And I said, oh, North Platte Physical Therapy, not to plug, but these guys are awesome. There's like 6 bow hunters in there. They know exactly what to do to rehab that. And I mean, it's you got to put the work in. Like, why are you shooting a crossbow is my first question to people.
But it's back to the people.
So here's what I would say.
Is it just because it's easier?
I mean, I see that, but I mean, 2 things I'd say, and being devil's advocate a little bit.
Right.
So number 1, we need people hunting.
Right, absolutely.
So if this guy's going to get in the field and he has no interest in being, Hunger Games type training, then fine, man. Let's get that guy out in the field with a crossbow. Let's slap him on the back. Let's make him, friends. Let's hook him up with other crossbow hunters. Let's get him out there. Now, if there's an opportunity, so once we get him hooked, and everybody knows this, right?
Right.
You get him hooked. Right. And then suddenly now there's an opportunity to bring those people in and say, hey, look,
these are the other options.
Maybe you can use our hunt app. It's called Timber, where we
talk about this too much.
To like similar compatibility in hunting.
I get it.
It's like the hunting app. Instead of Tinder, it's Timber.
Do you still swipe right?
You
and left
swipe
on
right
people?
to find a good hunting partner.
How can you tell from the photo if they're going to be a good hunting partner?
Well,
do they have a crossbow or not?
So how can you tell from the photo? Either way,
do you use like a photo of your best trophy and you're like, I'm too small? No, that's a nice deer. Okay.
But my friend,
so many options.
So my buddy, my friend Kyle Lamb, who runs with Viking Tactics, is one of our
strategic
partners here, has said so what do I want to hunt? Anything, any place, anytime, with any weapon that I can. That's how I want people to hunt. That's how I want to hunt, and that's public land, private land, archery, air gun, black powder. I think that's the thing for us to. I mean, that's the challenge that I think that we have to remember as a community is let's get people excited in these things. I want Dave to buy a optic that actually works for his rifle, but if he doesn't, we're still going to be hunting buddies, and I'm pumped that he's out there slaying it with his.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, Nephi, too. I do agree with you because I am the biggest person that like in my brain wants to advocate and recruit and retain these people, but I do the crossbow is just a weird thing for me.
And then who loves crossbows? Chewbacca does.
Your second Star Wars reference.
A giant hairy man. That's exactly that.
Yes. Right.
Now, is it the fact that with archery equipment you have to be more in tune, more on, and they're less forgiving than a rifle that leads you to that conclusion? Because I don't hear us having that same concern during the rifle season about the folks that choose to come up in a quad, get off and shoot it from the side of the road. We'll call it that.
It's
as
there.
Opposed to I know it's there, but I'm not hearing it around this conversation.
Because this is bow hunters, right? Yeah. But I bet you
we're walkers.
If we expanded this, right, and we start to let's talk about backcountry hunters, right? Or people who are like, hey, I'm a backcountry hunter. And they're gonna be like, well, what about those guys with those? And I've heard this, and you and I talked about this during the legislative session. Those guys are like, what about those guys? And they went down to Sportsman's Warehouse and they bought a rifle and they can shoot 1,000 yards, And then there's this new stigma that comes up and to me, all these things, it's just like a huge continuum where we have to be very careful of and I think I would go back to what you said when you were talking about, when I said
the people.
It's the people. We need to quit thinking about this as being like, oh, it's the piece of gear or the way. It's like, when we talk about these issues where we're all someplace different on this huge sliding scale. You got to be careful not to judge people who are on the scale of what tools they choose to use. We need to be more interested in making sure that we're doing the best that we can with what we have, that we're, our ethics for who we are and what we know. We're doing the best with what we've got. I think that's what we have to be doing.
Well, and I wish we took that, to take that a step further rather than sort of infighting, for lack of a better word, that we were focusing on the things, I have a very strong disagreement with the phrase hunting as conservation, because I think it's sort of accidental conservation. It's yes, your licenses pay for management. It's a tool of conservation. Hunting is a tool of conservation. It contributes to it, but but I wish that rather than all of this criticizing of gear or of method of take or of things like that, what we criticized were the people that were not doing their part or giving back or being an ethical hunter. Or I wish we policed ourselves a little better on that, and then brought people in. I wish when I walked into a season setting meeting, that when I sat down, I felt like I was in a room full of people that weren't just making demands, but were educated in what they were asking. And that's a shortcoming, I think, on our shoulders in the conservation community, but also in the hunting community, of not holding ourselves to these other standards that are okay, yeah, you hunt, but you also, have a little bit of a responsibility to take care of the resource that you are using and partaking of. And that doesn't just mean buying a license. That means being educated in your animal and this place and, things that are going on around it,
shooting thousands and thousands of rounds because David. It's all.
Well, and it's the PR, it's the Pittman Robertson, it's that kind of thing.
Stewardship.
But I think that's another reality for us to think about. Is there are a lot of people. Most of that hunting is conservation. Mm-hmm. That's going on in the background, and most people don't even know it. So the companies who are writing that check, hunting is conservation. So individuals, we said it was, before we said it's actually about 50-50, the money that comes in from PR versus money that comes in from license sales.
Yeah, but there's DJ too, which is another
Johnson,
yeah, which is another.
That's the fishing equipment.
Yeah,
right, yeah. Exactly, and so that's another $200-300 million. Yeah.
But the thing, the take home from this is that most of those people, there are companies who are extremely they're pumped on being part of that conservation. Mm-hmm. Most users don't have any idea.
No, I would not just users, most people. People that are using it, people that are not using it, nobody has an idea. But that's the problem is we're not talking about what it does, and we're not educating people on
even
that.
Within the community, it'd be important to say hey, when people
Did
say
you know?
But that's the whole message behind. That's the whole reason behind the message of hunting is conservation, mm-hmm. right? And I understand why you say you don't like it, but the part of the reason behind that is it's an educational tool to let hunters at least be aware, and the public be aware, that when you buy a license or that when you buy ammunition or something anything like that, that there is money that's coming back to the states for wildlife management, because so many even hunters don't know that. And so it's really used as a tool to say
it's an education and a conversation starter.
You have to go. Sure, we want people to go farther. We want people to go as far as they're willing to go. But we need to get the baseline information, and that's where I kind of like the hunting as conservation tag, because it's helping get the baseline information for hunters to recognize
I like that
they're
point, but I guess I'm jaded because I've seen it used as a crutch so many times for like an excuse of like, well, hunting is conservation, so what do you do? And you're like, well,
here's
what really do you do?
You said that, but like, there's one thing. You were at a conference you spoke at a couple of years ago that I was at, Jess, and I think that this was, to me, was awesome. You were at a conference called Shift. And you were talking with a bunch of outdoor rec folks. And to me, like we say hunting is conservation. We talk about the money that we put in. What I thought was powerful is you're in a room with a whole bunch of people who are looking at you and be like, oh my gosh, initially, she's a hunter. Oh my goodness. But guess what? How much money are those people putting into conservation? Like when you go to a convention where people are angry about the prospect of taxation because they want it to be as cheap as possible to go outdoors. Like, I mean,
I had a very interesting experience with that because I was part of their emerging leaders program, and that actually came up in it. And there's 3 of us out of, I think maybe 30, 3 or 4 of us were hunters, and that came up. And in the guise of asking, there's an opinion of like, should we tax hiking boots or backpacks
backpack tax?
And it was
Mike loves it.
It was an amazing. It split the room. It absolutely divided the room.
to 26 and 4.
It was not quite that drastic, but it was pretty drastic, and it was everything from trying. The barrier to entry kind of thing about getting people outside and people that can't afford much, but my pushback was always like, well, it is like, it's 11%. It's PR, I think, is 11.
Yeah.
I think with the backpack tax that they were proposing, at least in this scenario, was like 3%. And I was like, I don't feel like that's a make or break. But again, maybe I'm coming from a place that I can't relate to that. But it was amazing to that was my first experience with like witnessing like this, like, whoa, this is a very different mentality, and I'm still working with how to find that bridge there. But
Wow.
yeah, that was the conference that was the one I spoke at, not just was there.
But you're not alone on this issue, though. I mean, 99.99% of Americans don't understand taxes and the funding of the government. It doesn't ever compute for them. So your average Joe is going to be thinking, your average Jane is going to think that every April 15th when they turn in that form, that's what pays for
everything.
Yeah. Wildlife, parks. I mean, they don't have that sort of understanding. So it's always going to be a problem, and there's always going to be that need for education.
Yeah, that's the education.
So this could go on. This could be a conversation that goes on for another 3 hours. But there's a convention going on that these women need to get back to.
We're losing Codee.
Codee's already like, I'm out. We don't even get to hear her answer the last question we have, which is ridiculous.
Yeah. She might be back. We'll see.
We'll see if she's back in time. So we're gonna wrap this up, even though I feel like now we have the opportunity to do another 3 hours worth of podcast, because this is really just starting to get really, really good on
part 2.
Yeah, part 2 of a 7-part series. But I got to ask a question. So we ask the same question of everybody that comes on this show at the end of every episode. So this is the Your Mountain Podcast. We talk about things that are relating to activities on your land, your water, your wildlife. Nephi, you're looking at me weird. You're interrupting my train of thought.
I just wanted you to know, Dave, that if you wanted a shirt that said Your Mountain on it, you could get one.
Oh, yeah, you could? Where could you get that?
I think you can go to itsyourmountain.com.
Yeah, the website.
Yeah.
Links into the store. Yeah.
Just wanted everybody to know that. Okay, go ahead.
Wait.
Subtle.
So I can get a t-shirt? Can I get a sweatshirt there, too?
You bet you can.
Maybe a mug?
Sticker?
Some
What
stickers?
about a hat?
I don't know about hats.
Mike?
We're working on expanding into that opportunity.
We're gonna have more product announcements coming before too long. No, that's good point. Good point, Nephi.
Sorry.
Anyway, that was a good
digression.
That was a good digression.
That's what you want to
Anyway,
call it.
now I'm going to bring
Help us
it
get
back.
a microphone that works.
Yeah. Now let's bring it back around to wrapping this thing up with what is, I think, arguably my favorite part of every episode that we do, and I hope maybe one of your favorite parts too. If you, when you're done with this, maybe you'll say, "Hey, that was my favorite part." Like I said, this is the Your Mountain Podcast, where and we're talking about things, these important places, land, water, and wildlife, these things that are so important to us. We've talked about, today so much about, bow hunting and, lots of ethics and so forth. But at the root of it, we're talking about, in order to have those opportunities, there are these places that have to be there in order to have the opportunities, right? So as you're thinking about that, I'm going to ask you this question, and the two of you can decide who wants to answer first. But it's, what is your mountain? What is that place for you that place that motivates you, that place that's your, like, I can't even put it into words, really. It's like, what is that special place for you, that special moment for you, the thing that keeps you going, that, what is it? And it can be anything.
It can be
Sky's
metaphorical
the
or
limit.
actual.
Yeah, it's whatever you want it to be.
I actually have a mountain, but I'm not telling you because there's big mule deer on it.
You don't have to say the name of it.
Yeah.
You don't have to say the name.
Describe why.
I have a place that it was actually the first place I ever went on my first solo hunt, and it was the first place that I got at full draw on an animal, and I have still yet to shoot an animal on that hill, but every year I about beat myself bloody going after big mule deer on it. But it was a place that taught me a lot, and it gave me confidence because it was the first solo hunt I ever went on, and it was the first time I was alone and, messing up and on my own. And I don't know, on that mountain, I felt like I leveled up as a hunter, and I really came into my own and started having a lot of confidence as a bow hunter and a solo bow hunter. So it's out of Lander, and that's all I'm saying.
Wow, that's more specific
within a
than
500
Dave
mile
gets.
radius.
Yeah, that's
Within a 500-mile radius. Might be in Idaho, but I'm not telling you.
So I would say mine is a specific hunt, and it's from last season, and I'm sure my mountain might change over the years. But as a somewhat new bow hunter, last few years, for me, a lot of the time in the past, it's been, I have an elk tag, want to shoot an elk. I have a deer tag, want to shoot a deer. Well, last year, for the very first time, it was, I have a deer tag, I want to shoot that deer. I know which deer I want to shoot, which is a whole different level of hunting. I had seen this deer for a couple of years, watched it grow. His name was 8-Ball, and I was like, 8-Ball, that's the whitetail that I'm going to shoot. And watched him and, see him a couple times throughout the season, get all excited. I saw 8-Ball today. And it was towards the end of season. I was 36 weeks pregnant, so it was a challenge. And I had like 3 days left in season, and it was to the point where I was having to make that choice of, okay, do I just shoot any deer? Do I shoot the first buck I see, or do I hold out and wait for 8-Ball and potentially risk not filling my tag? And I made the choice, no, 8-Ball is special to me. I'm going to hold out for 8-Ball. And I was sick. I was sitting in the cold. It was miserable. I had a cold and couldn't breathe. And I waited out for 8-Ball. Like 2 days before season end, I found him. I got a shot at him, and I got 8-Ball. And so that was special to me.
That's awesome.
It was the first time that I had not a deer, but the deer that I wanted, and I wanted that deer. And I just was like, you know what? I felt good. I put the work in. I waited for the one special deer. I got him. He's going to go on my wall. He tastes amazing. And so for me, that was very special. And I hope to have more hunts like that in the future where I have
love
the
that.
animal.
That's a really great one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super cool. I hope someday I'm at that point in my hunting journey where I'm like,
calling your shots.
Where I'm like, that's the one I
This
want.
is a guy that
That's how I've always hunted with a bow, is that's the one. And the first deer I shot was one I picked out in July.
Mine's
and
always
I will
been,
say
if
that
it's
was not
brown,
a bow.
it's down.
I shot that one with a rifle because I was 36 weeks pregnant. And so
I'm really impressed
That is-
regardless of what
Oh, but
I
you should have
feel
seen
like-
me running when I saw him, and I was running.
I feel like we missed an opportunity for a whole side tangent story.
And then I shot him like a couple miles back. And
Like
I was like, oh, man.
you withheld critical information before we started this that could have made for a really cool story. And
Another time.
Yeah, for sure.
Part 2, 3, 4. There you
Well,
go.
Yeah.
so thank you both. And unfortunately, Codee is not back, so we
Yeah.
don't get to hear what her mountain is.
She's-
So we can make something up.
Well, I think she covered some good stories
I do too.
demonstrating
No, for
where
sure.
she really likes to be.
I agree, and she's putting a lot of work into helping organize this conference, and it was
Yeah.
great that she was able to take the time and sit down with us, and to both of you also, thanks so much for taking the time. I know you're here for other things, for other reasons, and we appreciate you taking this time, and hopefully we have a chance to chat more in the future. And for now, so we'll just leave it with that, unless anybody else has any thoughts that I'm missing.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Go buy a T-shirt.
That's right. And you know,
hopefully it's one of our T-shirts.
Go out and subscribe and rate this this podcast 5 stars.
You guys should make Dad of the Year T-shirts.
And Dad of the Year, your Mountain Dad of the Year T-shirts.
We absolutely should.
That sounds like the next. That's brilliant. I think that's the next thing we'll have to do. But until we do that, just remember, everybody, that life is about experiences. So go have one.